Hi, welcome to Alaskan in the Philippines, currently in Thailand. Actually, today I had a buddy show up here, came from the Philippines. He was actually a buddy of mine from Seattle. Actually, wasn't I met him in the Philippines. He was my neighbor at the place I was staying in, about halfway to Valencia, in Dumaguete, about halfway to Valencia, a place called Condoy, about halfway to Dumaguete up the Valencia Hill. And he just had enough. He'd actually been all over. He was in Cebu too. He just came from Cebu. But I left him there when I left the Philippines for Thailand here. And he showed up today, and I kind of helped him get squared away a little bit. I met up, said hello with him, helped him get in his room and stuff. And we're gonna go out and show him around and stuff. But right away he noticed things. I brought him down to the beach. So it kind of inspired me to talk about some things in the Philippines that he noticed right off the bat. He says, we were walking to the beach and I reached down and petted a cat, and he goes, "Oh, no mange, huh?" I said, "Yeah, no mange. Dogs and cats here are clean, and very few of them." And so we walked down on the beach. Yeah, he was pretty impressed with the beach. He really liked it and had a big smile on his face, and he's got plans. And I think I helped him get in his room. He's got a really nice room compared to mine. I was impressed. He's got a beachfront view even. Lucky guy, got a mountain view and a city view all in the same room. Pretty good view he's got. He's on a higher floor too, so he's got a better view than I do. Really lucky to have a good room like that. But anyway, I was talking to him about what he was tired of, and I didn't have to ask him. He was volunteering. He was tired of getting overcharged. He got overcharged on his 1,000 pesos on his visa. He said just his last visa. The guy told him it was right there, but he ended up charging him another 1,000. After he looked at the paper, got home, he found out it was 1,000 less than what he paid. The guy told him. So, and there was that. And then he also talked about he rented a guy to drive him and his girlfriend around, just spend a day driving around, and the guy quoted him a price and was trying to charge him 18,000 after the price he was quoted him after the fact. And he was trying to charge him by the mile after he already agreed to an amount, I guess. But that's something it'll happen to you. They won't stick to the agreed price at the end of the day. They'll want a little more, That's another thing that can happen to you. Can happen anywhere. But anyway, that was his grump. He's gotten overcharged at least twice, he mentioned, just without me prodding him about that at all. So he's over here in Hue Hin now, and I think he's probably thinks he's going to stay. He don't know, but he hasn't seen much yet. He just arrived this morning. He's going to go out and check the town out today, but they let him move right in, and there's no problem here. But anyway, there's some differences here, and I thought I might touch on a few things that are a little bit different here than the Philippines that you might notice, a guy might notice if you've come from the Philippines and you've come here to Thailand. Actually here, from Hue Hin to here, or from Dumaguete to Hue Hin here, I can list a few things that are differences that you might notice. Number one, you don't notice all the roosters. That's one thing you really notice in the Philippines. No matter where you are, almost at any time of day, even at night in the dark, you'll hear roosters going off all the time. And it's especially in the mornings at about 5 or 4, starts at about 4 in the morning. When it's still dark, you'll start hearing the occasional cock-a-doodle-doo. But then right at about daylight at 6 o'clock or whatever, it's just one giant chorus of roosters all doing the same. It sounds like a scream in unison almost. Just all morning long. And it really hardly slows down until late afternoon. It's kind of slows down, and when it gets hot. But you're always constantly being bombarded with a rooster. If you don't believe me, you just listen to any Philippine vlogger's video vlog, or if they're outside, and they don't even have to be outside, most of them can be inside making their video, you can constantly hear a rooster at all times in the background. That's just the way of the Philippines. And that's one thing you don't hear in Thailand here. Not everybody's raising roosters like the Philippines. They're raising roosters to to sell them for the cockfights. Here they have cockfights in Thailand too, but it's not like everybody's, that's their income level, is to raise roosters for the cockfights. You don't see it. Hardly anybody here raises roosters. There's just a few chickens in town. I do hear a rooster every now and then, here and there. You do hear them, but they're not like you hear them there in the Philippines just constantly. And dogs too. The dog population is way out of control in the Philippines, just everywhere. Even that's another thing he commented on. All the dogs, he goes, you should see them in Cebu area, just all over the place. And it's like that in Dumaguete, Valencia too. They're just laying in the roads. They're all over, very mangy, or they're tied up or kept in a cage and barking with, really loud all the time, all night. He complained that he couldn't sleep because of the dog barking back there all the time. So that's a thing to think about. Here you don't need it. They must have did some, I think they neutered a lot of the street dogs here because the population's very low. You don't see puppies around here. I'm not seeing any puppies running around like you Philippines. You see a whole family of puppies laying along the road and mothers suckling puppies. Here you don't see it. I haven't seen it anyway. And most of them are collared, have collars, and are overfed. The Buddhists feed animals. That's one part of their religion. So they're constantly, someone will be out doing a good deed for their Buddhist, for their karma by feeding animals, and they do. All the street animals are well fed around here. Cats and dogs, they're fat, they're overweight. A lot of them got diabetes, it looks like. So yeah, that's something you don't see in the Philippines. They do, a lot of people help with the street dogs over there. They do feed them and stuff there too, but they're just so sick and many and mangy, and disease is taking control of a lot of it. So that's a big difference between Thailand and the Philippines. You don't see the mangy dogs and hear the constant barking and whining like you do there in the Philippines. That's just the way of it. That's one thing I noticed right away. And another thing you're going to notice, there's some good and bad, is the language barrier. There is a language barrier here in Thailand that you won't notice as much in the Philippines, In the Philippines, you'll notice them all speaking Bisaya or Tagalog, but when you interrupt them with your English to ask them a question, there's generally, they can answer you and they can point you directions and ask you simple, you can make simple, basic talk to them. That's not a problem. Here in Thailand, it is a problem. Everybody you're going to meet, even somebody working at a counter, you think, well, they're going to speak English. No, they don't. Not much. Very little. If they got a job at a counter, that means they knew how to say hi and goodbye in English, or just a little bit. It don't mean they're proficient in English. In fact, it's pretty hard to find someone proficient in English here in Thailand at all. It's, for me, on your everyday encounters with Thai people, they will all be non-English speaking. So just keep that in mind. And that's kind of a roadblock, and it sets you up for, but if you're just dealing with them on a daily basis, like at the store, you're putting your stuff up, you can use the translator, and and that's what you do. If it comes to something important, if you're in a government office and they can't speak English, at a hospital or a dentist or something, or at a shop, and you want to bicker with them on price, you have to pull out your translator and translate from English to Philippine or English to Thai, and that works, and they all know it to do it too, and they expect it. But yeah, that's one roadblock here in Thailand. You're going to notice it ain't this difference than the Philippines. In the Philippines, but you will still run into that in the Philippines. There's still a lot of people that don't speak English there. Believe it or not, you thinking that it's all English speaking. It's not. There's a very high percent of the population that don't speak it at all, not much. You won't be able to communicate with them. And a lot of the English they'll be talking to you will be so thick an accent, it's very hard to understand too. So you're not going to be having deep, meaningful conversations with the Filipinos very often, is what my point is. But you can communicate, and that's a big plus, compared to Thailand. It's so much harder. That's one thing, yeah, the language. And I would say the people are different, the Thai are different than the Filipinos. The Thai are real reserved, relaxed, polite, very non-inquisitive. They're not going to approach you for if they're going to approach you, it's to sell you something, or, and that's about it, really. If it ain't to call you in to sell you something, or to check their product, or a massage, hello for a massage or something, they're not really good. They're pretty much going to ignore you on a daily basis. And it's hard to approach them too, to talk to them, and they don't speak your English. That's mostly the reason they kind of ignore you. So you expect that. You're going to almost be a ghost or invisible if you're a foreigner in Thailand. You're going to interact with them a little bit. In fact, you're going to have to go out of your way to interact with them, because they're probably not going to approach you almost never, you know. Same with the women, and you know, unless it's a girl working at a bar girl or something, they're not going to approach you. So, and you don't speak their language, so you're going to have to get on your phone and approach them. So that's the difference. In the Philippines, everybody's, you know, you can get people that'll yell out to you in small talk and, hi, how you doing, sir? Everybody will say good morning to you in the Philippines. Almost everybody. You walk here in Thailand and people will ignore you in the morning, a lot of them. And it ain't that they're rude or nothing. It's just they don't really try to strike up a conversation with strangers. It's just their culture, I'm sure. But yeah, in the Philippines, you'll notice they're very outgoing, very willing to approach you, very willing to talk to you, and they'll do that to the point of where the kids will come running up to you, and you'll be almost like a rock star in some places when you go in. They're going to want to all crowd around you and stuff. So that's a whole different culture than here in Thailand, you know. There's that, you know, so you're going to have to deal with that. And actually, I think there's another thing, that a safety factor here in the Philippines, or here in Thailand. I think it feels to me safer than it did in the Philippines. You know, you don't really hear the kidnappings, and if you do hear, the kidnappings are on the borders and the areas where it's usually not Americans or foreigners getting kidnapped. If you stay out of the border countries that are having war, you know, that it's usually Chinese kidnapped running at a sweatshops. They bring them in and have them work at a sweatshop or something and keep them kidnapped and do that. Fake call centers, scam centers, that's how they get kidnapped. In the Philippines, there's been some murders and stuff lately, and foreigners getting kidnapped. And you kind of really got to watch yourself. It seems to me, I always felt like I was being watched in the Philippines. And if I would have got up and walked away from my bag for 2 seconds, it would have disappeared or something. And it's never happened. I've never actually have any justification for those fears. I've never been robbed or ripped off or anything in the Philippines. My travels there 7 or so, 8 times. And I can honestly say I've never been stolen from at all, actually, never. But I've always had the feeling that I kind of watched out for myself. I took care of my stuff and watched my stuff and didn't put myself in stupid predicaments and situations. And I didn't drink, and I didn't go out at night in bars and dangerous areas. So that may be part of the reason. Same with here, I don't go out and I don't go to the bars and I don't go into the dangerous areas, but I don't see any dangerous areas here. I feel very confident walking down a dark alley here, and I've done it just recently. In the evening, I can walk in any small side street here. I have no fears of getting robbed. I don't think anybody here wants to steal my stuff. I really don't get that feeling. It's kind of everybody's in a higher income bracket here. There's a middle class, just like anywhere. The middle class people ain't trying to out and rip you off and scam you and all that. So it's generally the poor people that are doing that, or ones that are desperate and no job. So that brings me to another difference here in Thailand. In this area where I'm at in southern Thailand, or not in Bangkok or in the major areas, but there's no beggars down here from what I've seen. Very few. I've run into just 1 or 2, and they weren't that hard up or that bad off. They probably just needed a little something, gas for their motorbike or something. So there's really nobody's trying to scam money out of you or begging you or running up to you. No kid beggars at all. Never had a Thai child approach me for money ever. And I would be very surprised if it ever happened. So that's another thing. The economy here, the economy in Thailand is much, much better than it is in the Philippines. This is like the 23rd richest country in the world, I think. So they spend the money. Thai do a good job. They spend the money on the infrastructure. They build up their streets, and see them doing street and repair work all the time. They're building overpasses, railways. They got these high-speed railways, and they built all the rails up off the ground so you don't have, the cities ain't waiting for trains. They're pretty ahead of themselves. I think it's better. Their supermarkets and airports are better than the U.S. by far, if you ask me. So there's that. Not just the Philippines. They're better than the U.S. in my opinion. From what I've seen in Seattle, Seattle airport, piss puddles all over in the bathrooms. Here in the airports, you could eat off the floors are so clean, you know, and they have a maitre d' standing there with a towel wipe your hands with. So yeah, it's way better here than the U.S. even, if you ask me. So I'm not picking on the Philippines. I just want you to know that. But yeah, that was just, I was trying to compare a few things because, you know, people are trying to make decisions on where they want to retire, whether it be the Philippines or Thailand. And there's some of the considerations. And there's also one other consideration is the safety factor of like the government. Is the government in some kind of problem where that'll affect a war or something in the future? So that's another thing to consider, the stability of the country you're moving to. Same with the Philippines. Are they going to get overrun by China someday? That's a big fear. But I honestly, in my opinion, I don't think so. Even before Trump got in office, I hate to get political, but I didn't think it was going to happen. They were just trying to seize them islands, and they would take it if they could, but I don't think they would because of the backlash, and they know that the U.S. would have blocked put an embargo on it, would have killed their economy. So that, for that reason alone, I don't think China would do it. And that, you know, and Thailand's kind of got its coups going on too. You know, the military is in control of this country, I believe. They had military coup takeover, so they're going to have elections or something. I'm not sure, and I'm not getting into the politics of Thailand either. But I think with such a rich economy, and they've been a strong, you know, they've been strong holding off the Chinese for many years. So I think it ain't going to change right now. So I think this is pretty stable as long as the government's coups don't take over again or whatever. And peace that we have now keeps going. I think they're going to be very prosperous here for quite a while. No hunger, no poverty. I think the Thai are in pretty great shape. So to compare the two, the Philippines and Thailand, one hand to the other, I'd say that as far as infrastructure and everything goes, I would say Thailand's got a one-up on the Philippines pretty much for retirement. In my book, and from what I've seen, a lot of people coming from the Philippines coming to retire here in Thailand, they think so too. So, you know, somebody else may vary, you know, you may find your happy place in the Philippines, and there are those places where it's just beautiful and just the right size town, and the economy's no problem, and you're used to it, and you can take that simple living's just fine for you, and country life and all that. That's great. If you can do it, that's kind of what I'm looking for, but I also need to have some creature comforts and steady power and stuff, and that you kind of can't find in a lot of places in the Philippines. Unless you're in a major city, you'll get steady power, but out in the smaller areas where it's pretty, and if that ain't a problem for you, it ain't a problem, you know. It don't have to have power 24 hours a day, so it may be a nice place to live. But anyway, it's getting a little long. Those are a few of my thoughts on the differences between the Philippines and Thailand. There's many more, and I can go into it again someday, and I may. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.